Welcome to Moms in Ministry, the podcast where we help moms navigate faith, family, and ministry together. I'm Jalea.
And I'm Estella.
And we're your hosts. We're passionate about empowering and equipping moms to live out their calling in ministry and beyond.
Join us each week as we explore topics that matter most to you, from parenting and marriage to ministry and personal growth.
We'll share real conversations, practical tips, and inspiring stories from fellow moms in ministry.
So grab a cup of coffee, get comfortable, and let's dive in.
We have a great episode planned today. We're going to talk about finding balance. Everybody in the room who wants to find balance, raise your hand, because I feel like we're all
both hands raised.
Both hands are raised, because I feel like we're constantly looking for how to find balance in our lives. But before we get there, I do want to do a couple things. I want to first celebrate what's happening in the Moms in Ministry Facebook group. For those of you who don't know, there is a Moms in Ministry Facebook group. When I launched this organization, the one thing I always said is I'm not an expert in doing ministry. I'm not an expert in parenting, but what I can do is bring other women together and allow everybody to breathe into each other's lives. And so that's why we created the Moms in Ministry Facebook page, where you can ask questions, where you can share about your life, where you can share where you are in this season, have people praying for you, sending you advice, encouraging you, whatever you need. This week, we had a really special post in the Moms in Ministry Facebook group. This post comes from a young mom. She's new to the Moms in Ministry Facebook. She shared about her life and introducing herself. She said, I'm really missing the fellowship of being a part of her church group and worship team. She said, right now I'm focusing on finishing college since I only have one semester left. So basically, I'm joining this group to learn from other moms who are called to ministry and currently in ministry, and to be encouraged. And so I just thought this story was amazing. She's a young mom, newly married, loves ministry, thought that when she graduated college, she would go into full-time ministry. And being a mom, she got off track a little bit, has been all the way in motherhood, which is so normal. And it was so cool just to be able to encourage her, to connect with her in the Facebook group. So stories like that all over the place, extremely, extremely special. The other thing I want to share about is, Estella, you have an event coming up.
Yes, we do.
Yes.
And I am super excited about it. So if you live in the El Campo area or surrounding areas, November the 16th, we are having a In My Sisterhood era, I guess, get together. And if you're between the ages of 18 and 40, we are just extending an invite for an opportunity to get to know each other better, encourage one another, uplift one another. And we have a super special speaker who is going to speak at the event. Jalea, do you want to share who that is?
Well, I think it's me. I hope it's me because it's on my calendar.
Yes. So Jalea will be speaking, and I'm just so excited. The theme of it is flourishing in fall.
Ooh,
and I will
that.
talk about at the meeting how that just kind of came about, because it was just something that kind of happened to me while I was in the kitchen. And I just felt like, okay, I know it's fall, and I was trying to think of like kind of a theme, I guess you can say. And I just felt like flourishing, like God is wanting us to flourish in every season. I am super excited about it. It's going to be just a time of worship, of a word, and just like potluck refreshment type thing.
Yes, and the information will be found in the Moms in Ministry Facebook group, so be sure to check it out. And if you live in the surrounding areas, be sure to come and spend time. Estella launched In My Sisterhood era this year as well. And so it's been really cool for her to gather and pour into women in that kind of middle season of their lives. And so many great things have come out of it. So really looking forward to this event.
Yes, I'm looking forward to hearing what you have.
Yes, it's going to be great.
I'm looking forward to the word that God is going to place on your heart.
Flourish. It's going to be great. Well, today, like we said, we're going to talk about finding balance. And I think that this topic is so important because I don't know about you, but I feel like I've spent a lot of my life looking for balance in my life. And I have seen so many women asking these same questions, like, where is the balance? How do I find balance? I have conversation after conversation where people are like, hey, I'm doing okay, but I'm looking for balance right now in my life. And so Estella and I had a great conversation about this and what it it looks like for us. And we just want to share some of these thoughts with you and really just help you grow in finding balance. And we're going to get to this at the end, but I'd want to dispel maybe a misconception really fast about balance. Estella knows this, but I don't believe in balance. And so that's the like moment of surprise, surprise. I don't believe that life is made to be fully balanced. So that is the hopefully one of the big takeaways from today. And maybe it gives you some freedom. And I honestly think some people are like, what are you talking about? Like, I've spent my whole life building everything perfectly and trying to find the perfect balance. What are you saying that there's no balance and, you're not going to tell me how to get there? But what we want to help you do today is to lean into the rhythms of life, because that's really what we believe God has called us to do. And we were looking at some scripture earlier, and there's a scripture in Matthew 11:28-29, where Jesus is telling the people, like, come to me if you feel burdened or worn out. He says, learn the unforced rhythms of grace. And I think it's the Message version, right? The unforced rhythms of grace. I just thought that was so powerful, because if our life is to emulate Jesus, when you looked at Jesus, he was never rushed. He was, constantly moving and stopping and evaluating the moment and asking questions and fellowshipping and sitting. And I think that when we are constantly looking for balance, we're rushing and we're building and we're rigid and we're not fluid. And so I love that he says, learn the unforced rhythms of grace. And so we want to talk about a few ways that maybe you can access that unforced rhythm of grace in your life. And Estella, I would love to hear your thoughts, but I'm like, as I'm saying this out loud, I'm sure there are women like us who are super type A, who have lived their lives like not looking for unforced rhythm, because these words sound foreign. Unforced rhythm, flow, fluid. But I do believe that that's how God has called us to live. And we just need the tools to shift into that, because the world teaches us to live a completely different way.
Yeah, I think there's for sure. And I love how you brought up Jesus, because he is the example, obviously, in the goal of what we want to be like and who we want to be like. But just in that, Jesus always knew his purpose.
Right.
So just you can go on knowing your purpose, but it doesn't mean that you just kind of live however you want to live or do whatever you want to do, however you want to do it, without having a schedule.
Right.
Like Jesus knew his purpose, but he didn't allow like those things to kind of limit him in what he knew he was called to do. He didn't be like, okay, today I'm going to go here and I'm going to, do this. It's like along his way, he, like you said, made time to kind of minister if he felt led to do so.
Right.
So yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. I love it. So we're going to talk about that. Estella, why don't you talk about this first one? So we have three ways to find balance in your life, or three ways to learn the unforced rhythms of grace. And so the first one, Estella, is prioritize your life. So tell us a little bit about that one.
Yeah. So for me, for those of you who don't know me, but if you do know me, I stay pretty busy. And so for me, I have had to learn to reevaluate some things even into this coming year, because I feel like 2024 was one of the busiest years I've had in just releasing my book and then doing a 10-week study on it at the church, a weekly. And then I, work a full-time job from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, have a husband, 2 boys, and then met Jolea, and we talked about visions and goals. And she already had the podcast Moms in Ministry, but was looking for a co-host. And I was like, sure, and then at the same time, just starting the young ladies group at our church in my sisterhood era. And then not only that, but involved with the teens as one of the leaders.
Just keeps going.
And I also serve on the worship team. Yeah. So it is literally, that's kind of my life. How do I find the rhythm? Basically, I have a calendar. So I was talking with Jolea before we started recording, and I was like, for me, I have to prioritize, okay, what's most important for me in these moments? Because all of the things I am involved with are important.
Right.
Obviously, at this season in my life, I have to work. So, of course, I know that I have to work around that schedule, and that's a set schedule Monday through Friday from 8 to 5. And then also, I have a family. The one new thing that I am incorporating into my calendar this year is date nights
Yes,
with my
please, for the
husband,
love. Yes, me too.
because I realized that I was going and going and going. And, to be honest, it's easy to, I guess, put on the back burner some relationships that you kind of have grown accustomed to, because I live with my husband. I see him every day.
Mhm.
But, it was just, okay, I really need to prioritize that.
Yeah.
So that is something new that I'm implementing, but kind of managing my schedule around that. So I know that my marriage is a priority. So I have to put that on my calendar.
Yeah, I think what happens, especially when we're trying to find balance, like we think, well, I have to, go to work, be a wife, and, then be PTO mom and, soccer mom and everything, just all in the same, at the same level. Like I have to be
Hmm.
my 100% in all of these different places, and they have to fill the same amount of time so that I can be that. But even as you're talking, which is great because we just added date night and a get stuff done
Hmm.
like 3 or 4 hours in the calendar each week so that all the things that are in my head with my husband that I need to talk about has a set space for it to go, which has been amazing. But what I have a vision of, and this is how it is to do a calendar. So if you need help filling your calendar, like message us in the Moms in Ministry Facebook group because we can help. This is
Hmm.
really, I think, how we make it, truthfully. But when you build a calendar, I imagine it like you have a big vase, and in that vase, the first thing you want to put in the vase are your big rocks, right? And so those are your priorities. Those are the things that are going to take up the most space. And so you might put, your 9 to 5 job, and then you might put your marriage. You will put all of the most important things in there. And then you can fill the rest of your time with pebbles or sand. And, each pebble could be, being room mom at the school, or whatever those extracurricular things are, spending time with friends, whatever those are, then the pebbles fill in, but they cannot take up as much space as your big rocks take
Hmm.
up. And I think what happens is we fill our lives with pebbles and sand, and then we try to fit in all the big rocks too, and we're like, where do these things go? But the big rocks have to go first. The priorities have to come first.
Yeah. And if you're married, then for sure, that has to be a priority. And I
Mhm.
was talking with a friend, and because, sometimes, like I said, you just get so busy, you kind of forget, like, oh, yeah, I really didn't even talk to my husband today. Or,
Mhm.
sometimes you go, especially for working moms, you struggle with the mom guilt, and you're like,
Right.
gosh, I just said hi to my baby and we talked for 10 minutes, and baby meaning your children,
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
but I'm like, I didn't even talk to the boys today. And
Yeah.
Caleb was in band all night because they practiced, after school for
Right.
5 hours. It's not really 5 hours, but it feels like 5 hours because I never see him, but on certain days. And so it's like all of those things you're trying to prioritize. And, so for sure, I would say, and a calendar is something I never had to do,
Right.
but it's just different seasons. Like if you're in a season where you have a newborn or a
Yeah,
very young
that's true.
child, then that as a new mother, you're trying to learn to balance, accustoming or customizing yourself to this new schedule of not having sleep and,
Yeah,
all of those
yeah.
things that come with being a new mom. So
Mhm.
that is your priority,
Yeah.
so it's just different for everyone.
It's different for everyone, but what I would suggest is taking time to write it down
Mhm.
and really evaluate. Even in the things that we say yes to in ministry, it's important that the biggest rocks go first and then ministry comes after those. And it's been very helpful. So when I feel extremely busy, it's important to pause and relist out your priorities. Like, what is most important right now? Because a lot of times we get caught up in the urgent versus the important. So first on my list is God. And so putting him on there is so important because it's like, if all else fails, I got to spend time with God today, right? He is the top priority of my life. And that God and church are not the same. So we can talk about that a little bit. But God and my quiet time and spending time in the Word, spending time praying is most important. And then in scripture, it says that your family is your first ministry. Your home is your first ministry. So then it's my spouse, and then it's my children. And then I don't know where to put it, but I put like a box around it, and then I put self, because in all of
Mm-hmm.
that, like, self-care is really
Yeah.
important. Your health, your well-being, your emotional, physical, mental well-being still has to be taken care of. So that goes first, and then after that I put ministry. And so then it's like, this is the priority of my life. And right now, ministry and job are the same for me, so that can go as number 4. But then you begin to put everything. And I think some people, it is ministry and then job. Some people right now, it's like maybe you're a single mom and you're like, I have to provide. And so part of my ministry for my home is showing up to work. So it is
Mm-hmm.
job, and then serving at the church or ministry, fifth. Whatever that looks like, it can be different in different seasons. If you work from home and life is pretty stable, and so you're like, yes, work is great, but I really want to lean more into ministry, then you can switch the order that they go into. But then you see how that changes. When I put my big rocks in, it goes God first, then it
Mm-hmm.
goes my husband, then it goes my children. And so now, as I'm structuring my life, everything else is just the extra that fills in the open spaces.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so good. And I just feel, though, it is important to talk about also, which we talked about
Mm-hmm.
before recording, how it's important to keep Jesus so first. Like you
Yeah.
talked about God, but Jesus even gave the example in a story with Martha and Mary.
Yeah.
So if you're not familiar with who Martha and Mary are, I'm just going to read the scripture for you, but it is found in Luke. And so it says, now as they went on their way, he entered a certain village where a woman named Martha welcomed him. She had a sister named Mary who sat at Jesus' feet and listened to what he was saying. But Martha was distracted by her many tasks. So she came to him and asked, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her then to help me. But the Lord answered her, Martha, Martha, you are worried and distracted by many things, but few
Mm,
things are needed. Indeed, only one. Mary has chosen the better part, which will not
wow.
be taken away from her.
Wow.
And that is so good because even though like you and I, you work in ministry, that's
Yeah.
your job right now.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing this podcast and, all of the things that I'm involved in, you're involved in a lot, and we're doing these things to help others. So
Right.
it's not that Martha was doing anything bad.
She was trying to serve Jesus.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
was literally
Yeah.
serving
Literally
Jesus.
serving Jesus.
But, sometimes we get so distracted in the serving that we forget to take the time out for Jesus and to
Mm-hmm.
really just truly worship him, which is what Mary was doing, where she was at his feet
Yes.
and listening to what he was saying.
Right.
So it's just important. And like you said, prioritizing that God truly does come first, because without him, and I always say this in my alone time with God, my prayer is, God, don't let me take you out of what I'm doing.
Right.
Because if you're not in it, if I'm ministering to the teens and if I'm on this podcast and if I'm even on the worship team, God,
Right.
if you're not in it, then none of it matters, because this is who I'm doing it for. I'm doing it for you.
Right.
And I'm doing it, yes, to help others, but I need you, because without you, then it's nothing. I won't have the anointing. I won't have anything.
So powerful.
And so sometimes we have to remember, even though we're not necessarily doing bad, don't forget to keep God in the center, because he's the one that's going to provide the guidance and the wisdom. And should you even serve in that area, or
Right.
maybe you're called to it, but it's just not that season.
Right.
So it's just we've talked about allowing others to speak into your life, but also just allowing mainly God and his spirit to guide you where you need to go.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, like, that's how I'm going to assume, I don't want to, but that's how Jesus probably did it, because he's listening. Because we know Jesus didn't stop to heal every person he passed by. He didn't stop to minister to every person. He was followed by these crowds constantly. And yet there were just these intentional moments. And I have to assume that it was God inspired every moment that he would pause and see somebody, or he would go off on assignment to heal somebody who was sick, or pause to talk to the woman with the issue of blood. All of those were intentional moments, but they were God inspired. And so we wake up and we just run into work and kids and extracurricular activities and, doing all of our side projects and remodeling the house and everything. And then we never pause to ask God, like, what do you want from my day today? Who do you want me to connect with? What's on your heart? And I've been taking time even recently to ask God, what's on your heart? And what I found, at least I feel like he's telling me a lot of times it's people, it's the
Mhm.
pause of ministering to somebody. It's the pause of just praying for somebody. It's the pause of reaching out when life feels busy and still connecting. And the last thing I wanted to say about prioritizing your life, even with that description of the vase, it's okay to have open spaces.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I think open spaces make us uncomfortable, but open spaces are where we can connect with God deeper, because we've talked about this several times, but having that quiet time with God is not just about us talking to him, but it's about us pausing long enough to listen, asking for his guidance, and really leaning into what he wants to speak to us in each moment. And so I think that's really, really important for us to capture, to take a hold of, and be okay with open spaces. That's where creativity comes, margin.
Mhm.
Like we grow and develop in the margin of our life, which is the open space where you can think and be creative and do things differently than what you currently do. The second one is give yourself grace. Give yourself grace. We could all use some grace. I was thinking about the fact that we often are looking to be perfect, but
Mhm.
perfection truly is not the goal. Like if we could be perfect, we wouldn't need Jesus. That's
Mhm.
the whole thing. And so I feel like I've often found myself getting caught up in trying to execute everything exactly perfect the same way. I think about like soccer. So whenever Chandler has been in soccer, my 9-year-old, I feel like I had all this pressure. I have to go to every single practice and be on time to every single game. And like it was a priority for us to be there for his games, but I didn't have to take him to every practice. Right. And so
Mhm.
like to give that to some other people. And I think, again, it goes to whatever your priorities are. But with everything else I was juggling, if I had to be the perfect soccer mom in this season, I probably would have cracked. So
Yeah.
it was being able to take the pressure off and say, this is great for this season. And it's a, 3 or 4 month commitment. And in that, I'm building a schedule with my parents, with my
Mhm.
husband, and allowing them to pitch into this moment
Yeah.
and giving myself the grace to not feel like the worst mom on earth because I couldn't go to every single practice that he
Mhm.
had, but still allowing him to do that and explore that area of his life.
Yeah, and I think for sure when it comes to being a mom, we've talked about mom guilt again, but
Yes.
typically we just can't be there for everything and sometimes we feel bad.
Yeah.
But overall, if you are a supportive mom and you're there most of the time with your children, they
Hmm.
know it. So they're not going to think anything of you, occasionally missing something because you had something else to do. If you're always there to support, it's like if you're never there, then yeah, you want to try and do better.
Hmm.
But if you're there and you're a good mother, then you really should just give yourself grace in some areas and be like, okay, I didn't do it today, but I make 90% or 95% of
Yes.
everything else they do.
I always think about the phrase, I did my best today and my best was good enough.
Mhm.
And I think that, I don't know about you, but I definitely struggle sometimes with the not good enough soundtrack of like, doesn't matter how much I do, it's never enough. There's always still more to do.
Mhm.
But I've learned to just look at myself and say, today I gave 100%, I know.
Mhm.
But maybe today my 100% was 60,
Yeah.
because I had a long week and I'm a little tired and my body just is not able to do as much as it could if I was firing on all cylinders.
Mhm.
But I was able to give 100% of the 60% that I
Yep.
had. That's a lot of math, but it's
Mhm.
but it's real. And when we give ourselves grace, we give ourselves the grace to try new things, and we give ourselves the grace to fail. But when we don't give ourselves grace, we'll either not try things because we're afraid of failing, or when we fail, we'll be so hard on ourselves that we quit. And so then it's like in ministry, if you don't give yourself grace in ministry to mess up or miss a serve or whatever it is, then that's where, you'll quit because you're like, well, it's just too much.
Mhm.
And because I wasn't able to make it that one time, and because my schedule feels too crazy to do this perfectly every week, that I'm just going to quit, versus being like, okay, I wasn't able to make it. Let's evaluate why, because we
Mhm.
do want to be dependable volunteers. And I speak from a leadership position. So we want to be dependable volunteers. But hey, why did I miss this? Is it because I've said yes to serving every single Sunday? And really, right now, I have the capacity to serve 3 Sundays or 2 Sundays.
Mhm.
And can I evaluate and then look at my calendar ahead of time and say, okay, I'm available the first and fourth Sunday of the month, or the second and third, whatever it is. And then now, even if you are available on the other ones, you have a little bit of grace and
Mhm.
rhythm to do some different things on Sundays that maybe your calendar, your schedule is calling for.
Yeah.
So grace is super super important, and being able to give yourself that grace really matters. And remember this, God is a God of grace as well. He gives us so much grace. A lot of times the not good enough is not coming from God. And I want you guys to hear that today, that what you feel is not enough, God is like, no, it was enough for today because you did your best, because you woke up and you tried and you showed up and you smiled at your kids and you made them dinner.
Yeah.
And you put something, even if it was pizza, you put pizza on the table today. You picked them up first from school today. You gave them a hug and spent the 5 minutes it takes to put them to bed that night. All of those things, it's enough.
Mhm.
And so, and when it does feel like enough, then it gives you the strength to do more the next day.
Yeah, and I always say too, like, you are the only one who can determine what that best is.
Yeah.
So you truly know if you're trying your best or not, and you
Hmm.
truly know if you need to do better. And if you need to do better, then just, try and do better. But if
Yeah.
you sometimes it just involves creating a routine or, just trying overall to do better in that area. And that sometimes takes time, it takes practice and whatever it is. But just ultimately, as long as you're patient with yourself, because I feel
Hmm.
like sometimes when we're so hard on ourselves, it just makes us want to quit everything in
Yeah.
general.
It just demoralizes
And then
you.
it's like, okay, let me not quit, but let me just take a step back and see what can I do better as a parent, as a servant, or whatever it is you're doing
Yeah.
in that moment.
Yeah. And the third one is be flexible. So we're learning about the unforced rhythms of grace. And this is why I'm so passionate about rhythm versus balance. Because the thing with balance, when I look at it, balance literally, I think maybe this was in science in some grade that I was in, but you get out the balance beam, right? And in order to get those beams to sit perfectly, you have to have the exact right amount on one side and the exact same amount on the other. Like, it had to be perfect
Mhm.
for it to be balanced. And that's why I say you got to let go of the need to be balanced, because that's a rigid life. That's a life that doesn't allow for mistakes, doesn't allow for things to change. It also doesn't allow for kids to get sick. It doesn't allow for to get a flat tire. It doesn't
Mhm.
allow for you to make a transition and join a different team in ministry because somebody's asked you to go on assignment. When you're building life on balance, it eliminates the space that I think God also or usually asks us to live in. So instead, we should flow in rhythm. And when you flow in rhythm, you're able to be flexible, because that means that when the kid gets sick, it doesn't break you,
Mhm.
right? And you had a whole day plan, and you were going to go to this meeting and this meeting and this meeting, and you were going to work on that side project, and you were going to, finish the kitchen and, clean the house, whatever it is. You had all these things. When you have balance and your kid gets sick and now you have to go to the doctor and just
Mhm.
sit on the couch and hold them, you're literally crumbling because you're like, none of my plans
Mhm.
came together. Everything fell apart, right? It all crumbled. But when it's rhythm, it's like, okay, well, I can't do that meeting today. So I'm going to just shift it and
Yeah.
move it. I can't clean the kitchen tonight, but if I have older kids, maybe they can pitch in, or my
Mhm.
husband can pitch in. Or it's just going to have to move to tomorrow.
Yeah.
So then it allows you to look at your calendar, look at your life, and just learn to move with the rhythms and know that God is intentional about the things that, and so I even think just for the sick kid, learning to not try to push past the sickness and keep your life moving. If they need you to sit on the couch and cuddle with them, do that. Those moments are worth it. And those are the moments they'll remember.
Yeah. And I think all of those things, when you're listing all of those things, I'm like, that's just life.
Yeah.
It's like we can't control what happens on the outside. And sometimes if you just overthink things and overstress, it could ruin your whole day. So just allowing just grace, like we've talked about, and just being like, okay, take a deep breath. Okay, it didn't go as planned, but you know what? It's going to be fine. Is it going to kill me? Probably not. No, it won't.
It feels like it will.
Not probably not. It most likely won't.
It feels like it does. So
yeah.
I get what you're saying.
But just allowing it and just saying, you know what? Just I feel like I've had to do this more recently too.
Yes.
Things go not as planned or whatever happens, I have to stop myself from just overreacting and be like, Estella, is it really that big of a deal?
Yeah.
No, it's not. So, and then that just kind of helps calm me and be like, you know what? It's not even really that big of a deal. I'm just going to kind of let it go, move on, and, just move on and quit dwelling on it. And so I feel like sometimes as moms, especially if we're very organized and it doesn't go how we want it to go, then we can easily just allow that to ruin our whole day.
Yeah. It's like, don't let a hard moment ruin the rest of your day. I think, man, that was a lesson I had to learn because, something would happen in the morning or a kid would forget their lunch kit. And I'm like, oh no, my whole schedule is done. Like even last week I left the house and I forgot like half the stuff I needed. So I had to turn around. So I was running 15 minutes behind, and that in old Julia would have been the end of the world. It would have ruined. I'm like, my whole day is destroyed because I'm 15 minutes late to something. But just having to learn the flexibility of like, that is literally, like you said, it's just life. And so as I've learned to live like that, it makes it easier because I take things as they come. I adjust as needed. And I think the flexibility is what gives us the ability to try new things and say yes to new things. Even for us, it was the flexibility of being willing to go to breakfast with somebody we did not know, both of us, we didn't know who each other were, but it's like, okay, we're going to make space and just try this, and being open and flexible with your schedule, being open to, the coffee. I think there are some women though that this is really easy for, like you're super people and they were like, I never worked with the schedule anyways. So it's all of this together because, but we say at church, have a plan, but stay flexible.
Yeah.
So have a vision for what you want, right? Have a vision for what you want to accomplish. I'm not saying just throw it all out and not try to do anything, but have a vision for ministry, have a vision for your family, have a vision for your marriage and for the relationship you want with God. But then in each day, as you have that vision and as you're moving towards that vision, just be flexible with the path that you take towards it.
Yeah. And knowing that sometimes, some days it's just going to be a bad morning, or some days you're just going to have a bad day, and that's okay. It's perfectly normal as long as you just don't let that bad day turn into a bad week, a bad month, a bad year. Just learning to move forward, let go of things, and give yourself grace. And yet, the things we're talking about, planning, prioritizing, it almost sounds like contradictive to one another, because it's like you want to plan and you want to do a schedule, but then you want to give yourself grace, and then you want to just allow for things to happen. But truly, like, that's just the best way to do it. Is you don't want to just go through life and be like, yeah, I really kind of don't know what I'm going to do today. Well, I mean, that's okay. Some days that's okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, just overall a vision for your life. Like it's not okay. I don't think it's okay to not have a vision.
Yeah. Well, the scripture says where there is in Proverbs, where there is no vision, the people perish.
But just overall, just not having a plan for the year, like the year's going to fly by.
Yes.
And then at the end of the year, like, okay, I didn't really do anything. I'm at the same place I was last year. Then, just spend some time with God. And when you spend quiet time with God, He's going to start talking to you. He's going to start dealing with you. He's going to start pushing you out of your comfort zone.
Right.
100%.
Yeah, 100%. Well, and this is what we're sharing with you. It's the formula. So don't listen to this podcast and just execute the be flexible part. Like it is literally start with your priorities, give yourself grace and then be flexible
Yeah.
because that's it. I have people all the time who are like, Jalea, I don't know how you do it all. And it's because I've stopped trying to be perfect and I just take the day as it comes. I take the challenges as they come, but I also have a plan for the day and I manage my calendar really, really well. And I have a vision for where I'm going.
Yeah.
And so then because I have the vision, because I have a calendar, when things adjust, they adjust, and I've learned to just take it and run with those changes.
Yeah, that's so good. It's such good advice for people who maybe even struggle with being a planner.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
not everybody is a planner.
Yeah.
But I feel like when you know what you're doing, then you have that and you know where your end goal is at.
Absolutely. Well, we hope that this helped you. I hope that it didn't feel like a beta switch if you were listening to this, looking for us to give you the secret sauce for finding the perfect balance in your life where you can be the perfect housewife and employee and ministry worker and mom. But instead, we hope that this blessed you in finding that it's okay for life to be imperfect, for it to be flexible, for it to look different each day, and just to learn how to find the rhythms and live in the unforced rhythms of grace. So we hope that it blessed you. If there's any way we can help, reach out to us in the Facebook group. We'd love to connect with you, love to look at your calendar, talk about it, help you prioritize your life, and really just be a resource that would help support you. Estella is pointing at me. I would love to do it 100%. She's like, don't commit me to this. I will just say Estella is very much, we talked about this, she is not the cheerleader. I'm like the, woo, Stella's going to tell you like it is. So if you need somebody to knock you on the head and be like, you should have had a V8, get yourself together.
I'm working on being kinder as I tell it like it is.
We need both. So I prefer the, just tell me how it is. So anyways, reach out to me or us on the Facebook.
You can reach out to me too. I can give you tips.
Reach out to us on Facebook. We'd love to connect. And if this podcast blessed you or you think it could be a blessing to somebody else, hit that share button and send it to a friend, a family member, somebody else that serves in ministry alongside you. And we cannot wait to see you on the next episode of the Moms in Ministry podcast.